Are we on, Fernando? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show with Fernando. I see him frozen on his screen, so that immediately puts it on me to say hello to everybody. Welcome to the show, and we're really looking forward to speaking with all of you. And here comes Fernando. He's frozen, he's silent, something weird is going on. I'm going to give him a chance. Let's see if this technical problem works itself out, because he's talking and I don't hear him. Fernando, you're talking, you're buffering, and I don't have any audio, so we're having some technical problems. I've told everybody on the screen and said hello to everybody. Now I'll pause and wait, and let's see if you can figure out what's going on.
Okay.
There you go. Now your voice is back. Good.
All right. Let me place this a little bit.
Listen, Fernando's good. I just started welcoming everyone because you were buffered up and frozen on the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, zero COVID is frustrating. It's very frustrating. And going into the fourth winter, there's even now in 4 or 5 cities in China, there's a youth. Typically, they're the most aggressive people. It's understandable. They're the most frustrated, and they're bubbling out. And some of them are out there on the street protesting. And stupidly, they're being violent in public. When you're violent in public, you get arrested in China. Okay, so that's not good. But remember that if you are violent in public in the United States, France, Germany, Italy, or anywhere else on planet Earth, you also might have the police beating the shit out of you because you're committing a crime, and then you're going to get arrested. So none of this is unusual for China. I want to say, because what I'm doing is I'm giving you an expanded version of the title of our show today, which is that zero COVID is frustrating. Yes, it is. Fernando and I agree. It's no laughing matter. So is death and misery. So is the 5 million people that would be dead. That death and that misery that we would have if China didn't have zero COVID. My grandson's grandmother, my son's grandmother is alive and healthy. He still has a grandmother. 5 million children wouldn't have their grandparents or their parents if China wasn't doing zero COVID. You know what we call that? Death and misery. Am I wrong? So you see, folks, it's not so simple, is it? Death and misery is death and misery. Taiwan opened up last year, and in the first 6 months of opening up, of course, Taiwan did it. China should do it. Taiwan opened up, and over the first 6 months had 20,000 deaths. If China opens up starting now, today, God bless all of you smart Western people who know better than Xi Jinping, who know better than Mario and Fernando, who know better than the Arshada 20th National Congress, that zero COVID should end. How stupid we all are, how dumb and incompetent the government is. All they want to do is control people. Yes, let it open up. And in the next 6 months, 1 million Chinese citizens will die. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, zero COVID is frustrating. Death and misery would be frustrating too if China didn't have zero COVID. That's my open. Welcome to the show, Fernando.
Well, hello, Mario. I want to address something that a lot of people were suggesting on Twitter. Like, what do you think are the options for China? Let's say, for example, that Xi Jinping in Beijing decides to say, you know what? Okay, this is what you want. This is what you want. Let's have COVID run rampant in China, infect millions of people, kill millions of elderly. Let's do that. But then those deaths are going to be on you, the people, on you, the ones who are asking to stop zero COVID. And perhaps at that moment, you, the people, will appreciate that everything that COVID-0 pretends to do is protect you. It's everything that is trying to do. Now, we can sit here and discuss about the execution of the lockdowns, the execution of all the things that are necessary to protect you, and pinpoint the faults, the failures, the mistakes. That we can sit here and do that. And we would spend a lot of time because a lot of mistakes have been made. But you cannot sit here and say that having zero COVID doesn't protect people. That's not possible. You cannot say that.
You can't have it both ways.
You don't protect people, and it goes rampant, people will die. As you just showed, as we were just showing this tweet, it says 900,000 um, possible deaths in under 6 months in China if they do as Taiwan did, one of the highest
Just did.
mRNA vaccinated nations on earth. There
Yes.
is no such thing as a controlled opening. So this is to show that, I mean, the government is doing what they have to do to protect people. It is taxing. It is frustrating. It is difficult.
Of course
You've
it is.
lost business opportunities. I've lost business opportunities. People all over the country have lost money, have lost opportunities, have lost time. But what is the other alternative? Losing lives, losing millions of lives in China? That's the alternative? Do you I look, here's a very important aspect. After the Big 20, they decided, okay, let's start loosening up some of these regulations, some of these limitations, some of these procedures. Let's start to loosen them up. And numbers started going up. But get what is happening. You've got to remember, let me just set it up like this. You have got to remember that China is a country of 1.4 billion people. So when Beijing mandates something, when Beijing decides, okay, we're going to do this and this and this and that, that needs to trickle down. That communication needs to get all the way down to the Baoan, to the security guard out here outside the door, or to the community manager over here who, well, is not necessarily the most experienced person, not the more empathetic person,
Here's
not the
the local
more
people.
sympathetic. It's just a regular guy getting instructions. And here's the biggest thing, and this is probably a criticism on this whole meritocracy system. A lot of the local people are afraid to loosen up. They are afraid that if they loosen up and cases spark, they will
It's
be
their
held
responsibility.
accountable. They will
Yeah.
be held responsible, which is something that happens in China. So you can see a little bit of that contradiction taking place at the local levels. You can see how the recipe for potential abuses exists. It's not widespread. I have been traveling around this country for so long, for almost 11 months. I've been here in the city, Dongguan, back for almost 3 weeks. I haven't seen any protests. I haven't seen anybody being disrespectful to them. So this happens locally in certain areas. Then remember, 1.4 billion people, and you have, I don't know, 1,000 people protesting something that didn't go right in a condominium, in a real estate area, or in a residential. That's bound to happen. So let us not lose perspective of the challenges that implementing zero COVID and even starting to open up presents to the people of China. The really, really difficult part is the media. And I was talking about this with
Yeah.
you earlier in preparation, how
They're monsters.
we're there's protests here and there. And this is something that you need to bear in mind. In the West, there are protests all the time. Black Lives Matter, um, January 6th. In Europe, there are the yellow vests. In the Netherlands, there are the farmers. In Canada, the truckers. There's protests all over the world all the time. You know what those countries don't have to deal with? Antagonistic media taking anything that they see and turning it into a lie,
Even
turning
lying.
that into
Not
literally
not
lying.
not just distort, not just having a negative bias, not just generalizing, distorting, and deleting, which is what are the three classic ways of manipulation and deception. And I told you I'm starting up the course for free for everybody. Go to my channel. The how to identify and protect yourself from manipulation and deception, because you are being roiled by it. And one of the classic things that they do, there's a classic model, one of many. One of the classic models is you generalize, you delete, and you distort. I generalize and delete and distort. And in this case, it's distort. It's so bad that they're not just generalizing, deleting, and distorting. They're just out and out lying straight up, which is not a technique. Lying isn't a technique. It's a character flaw, man. Jesus.
Now, I want to share something with you that has to do with some of the protests that are taking place in Shanghai, for example. I wanted to say this in one of the videos that I shot for state media, but I chose against it. But the truth of the matter is that Shanghai houses some of the most liberal minds in China. And by liberal, I'm not saying that as a compliment. I'm saying that as those wannabe Westoids who think that freedom is everything and democracy could solve everything, like that kind of mind. And this is the interesting thing. What you're seeing about the protests in Shanghai, listen up, people. I just told you what kind of people. Look, I came to China 22 years ago, and I landed in Shanghai. I was brought to China by a Chinese people. You know what everybody told me after he placed me in my place where I was going to work? Shanghainese people look down on the rest of China. 22 years ago, that hasn't changed. That ego, that we're better than the rest, we're different, that the Shanghainese people feel, that ethos of the Shanghainese person is alive and well.
Absolutely.
That is alive and well. Now look at this. In Xinjiang, right, the protesters, they protesting the measures that led to the fire in which 10 people died. We're not going to talk about the fire. We're not going to talk about what took place. I've gotten some information, but I'm not going to share that yet. But in Xinjiang, the people protesting, they are singing the national anthem, International. They are raising Chinese flags.
What?
Yes,
what?
sir.
They're singing the national
They are
anthem?
singing the
They're raising the
yes,
Chinese
sir.
flag? No, for that. It's an anti-government protest.
Be.
No, they hate China.
So that's what's taking place in Urumqi, the city. Now, what is taking place in Urumqi Street? The street in Shanghai. These idiots, down with Xi Jinping, down with the party. What's the difference? The people. The people. 22 years ago, I came here, and everyone I talk to, Shanghai people, they look down on the rest of China. They think they're different. That's the difference. That's the difference. That's what you are seeing in the media. Now, are they protests in other places of China? Yes, there are protests in Guangzhou. There are protests in Luizhou. There are different places where the process has been messed up. We're not here to cover it up. We're not here to lie to you. We're not here to tell you that everything is peaches and roses.
It's a problem.
What we are here to tell you, is that zero COVID protects the lives of people.
Thank you.
The
Fernando.
implementation of zero COVID is extremely complicated, and that there is one cog in the middle of all this. When Beijing says, let's relax some of these measures, the lower level management are fearful to implement these measures and having to face consequence of cases happening. There is a contradictory situation taking place, and that's what we're seeing. Places being locked down, perhaps unnecessarily, people getting back into lockdown, perhaps unnecessarily. So there is a discussion to be had as to where do we go from now. May I throw another topic of discussion on the table, Mario, and you can tell me?
Throw it.
People are calling for Xi Jinping to step down.
That's a joke. No, they're
Comment.
not. Who's 17 people are calling for Xi Jinping. 17 stupid kids on the street are calling for Xi Jinping to step down. That's not even something to discuss, to be honest with you. That's ridiculous. There's no substance to that. It's
Yeah.
17 youth at night who smoked marijuana and have been drinking, saying stupid shit, and go home at night and go, oh man, last night when I was out in Urumqi, did I actually out loud say that Xi Jinping should step down? What an idiot I am. And his mother comes in and smacks him in the head and says, what's wrong with you, you stupid kid? Give me a break, Fernando. Xi Jinping should step down. Okay, now you got my opinion about that.
Look,
Continue.
I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you another tweet that refers to what we did last night. Okay, and then that's gonna lead us into what we discussed before we went on air.
Yeah.
I want to show you this particular tweet, okay? Because this is something that has been voiced out a lot. I'm all over Twitter, taking it to the people who have been lying about China for so long. Let me show you this tweet.
Yeah.
This is from Sammy. He says there are huge protests over a fire that killed 10 people, but no protests over China committing a genocide and killing millions of Uyghurs.
Oh, hello.
We need to take this message. We need to take this message and throw it in the face of all those who accuse China of genocide in Xinjiang.
Thank you.
Show us the evidence of protests against the genocide. We're not asking for evidence of the genocide itself. That's too much to ask for those people, because there is no genocide. But if there were genocide, why are we not seeing any protests, any videos, any photos of any protests of people going against the genocide? I want to confirm with everybody that these videos that we made yesterday and today are not about the people who died. These videos are about the protests that we have witnessed and what they mean to the future of allegations against China. Nobody can claim genocide because there are no videos of protests against the genocide in Xinjiang, the alleged genocide. Let me correct myself. There are no videos of the genocide. There are no videos of the protests in Xinjiang against the alleged genocide, but there are hundreds of videos of the protests, well, against the measures that were incorrectly taken or that caused 10 people to die. That is the topic of our video, and that is the topic of yesterday's video, and that's why I don't take any shame in saying what I'm saying.
It's an
Anybody
incredibly
in the future, anybody towards the future can use this information to destroy the narrative of Western media, Western pundits, and paid leaders attacking China, telling you the lies that there's a genocide in Xinjiang. That information can be thrown in their faces and they will not be able to retort. This has potential to destroy the lies and the negative narrative, the invented story of genocide in Xinjiang. So I will not take it back because I think it's an important message to drive.
It's important. You brought it to my attention. Thank you for inviting me to go on the show come on the show with you yesterday to talk about this. It's so obvious. If there's protests over 10 people being killed, how could there be no protests over millions of people having been killed or genocided or abused or harassed in any way? It's nonsense, and it proves exactly what we've been saying all along for the last 3 years. Okay, this is geopolitical propaganda and lies about China, and it's nonsense.
Look, I'm going to share one last bit of information. Local reporters, Chinese reporters in Urumqi, have confirmed to a friend of mine that these doors were not locked, that there were issues for the fire department going in, but that's not what caused the terrible deaths. That's what I hear from Chinese reporters on the ground. That's the caveat. That's a disclaimer out there. Western media are saying, "Oh, these people were bolt and lock, and they couldn't exit." In preparation for the last show yesterday, we said, "Look, you could be trapped between the exit and the fire. It could be that there's a fire preventing you from exit. Think about 9/11.
Yeah.
Why were people jumping out the windows? Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
because they couldn't get to an exit. They were not locked
Yeah.
down.
There's all kinds of.
So
Fernando, come on, man. Fernando. Tragedy
Yeah.
is tragedy. Let it go. Tragedy is tragedy. Tragedy is tragedy. Let it go. Number one. Number two. If local officials, and I can see you're upset, and you should be, okay? I am too. People died. Something went wrong. Above and beyond the regular zero COVID policy, which is, as was said at the Arshada 20th National Congress by Xi Jinping, a tremendous success at protecting everyone's health all across the country. But when things go wrong, what happens in China? Are government officials held accountable? Yes, they are. And that's the last word on this. All right. Officials
all right.
will be screwed up. They did something wrong. People died, whatever it might be. In China, people are held accountable when that happens. And that is the government doing its job. Now, listen, I'm going to move on. All right. You're going to move on? You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's move on.
Protests. Give me a break. Well, listen to me. Okay. I said it back to the title of the show and protests. Okay. Zero COVID is frustrating. And into the fourth winter of zero COVID, it's understandable. Oh, again? Number one. Number two, small business owners running out of money, okay, because it affects their businesses. So is it understandable that if we're going to go into another wave of cases in China, which is still a lot smaller than waves of cases in Western countries, right? 20, 30,000 cases, 50,000 cases is still tiny in this country, but it's not without impact. So it's understandable that people go out and get frustrated. And that's what these protests are, and they're saying, cancel it. No, that is not what these protests are. People in Urumqi they were singing you're being lied to. They were singing the national anthem, lighting candles. These were vigils and mourning. Yes, they're asking to hold the government accountable for mistakes. That's not anti-China protests. And in Shanghai, I was watching. Fernando, you sent me some of these, and I was looking in my Twitter feed. I don't want to mention names about these Western people who say, they're promoting that these Western journalists are outrageous, okay? Because you're in Urumqi and I'm looking and I'm seeing these photos and I'm seeing these videos and people are lighting candles. And I'm going, I mean, if I was pissed off at Xi Jinping and I wanted him out, and I wanted to scream about it, I wouldn't light a candle. What is this lighting candles and putting flowers? Would you take flowers and candles? Would you take flowers and candles to an anti-China, I want Xi Jinping out a protest? Does that make sense? No, because the vast majority of those people were not there. They were there publicly in a public peaceful protest in vigil. You know what vigil is, right? It was vigil, mourning with candles and flowers, mourning the deaths of the people, okay, of the fire victims
People in Urumqi.
And a smaller number of people, okay, the more angry youths who don't think straight, who are drinking and even smoking dope, because even that's available now, unfortunately, in places like Shanghai. Okay, the youth are always emotional and irrational. They weren't there to show respect to the dead. They were there to be angry and start chanting their anti-China crap. That's no good. That's no good for anybody. And that's what I'm against. I've said it over and over again. I'm against derogatory comments in Twitter. I'm against allowing derogatory comments because that's normal. When I was in Catholic school growing up in the 70s, you're not allowed to call the girl in your class an ugly fart face or, whatever. You're not allowed to do it. Okay. You're not allowed to be derogatory, all right, to other people in public. And this is the problem. This is the neoliberal agenda. I can say what I want. I have freedom of speech. No, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. There is and there should be censorship everywhere. I fully support censorship of derogatory crap, okay? Because out on the street, out in the public, it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed.
Now, the next
Yes.
few days are going to be extremely important to keep an eye open, because again, there's a lot of misinformation from Western media that they're just savoring this moment. They're just like foaming at the mouth because, oh, finally China is going to collapse. Finally, the people are protesting. It's so sickening to see that they are celebrating. They don't really care about Chinese people. They're celebrating
No, that's
what
not their
what
interest.
is happening to them, and that is causing them to protest. Of course, zero COVID is way better alternative than letting it run rampant in a country, killing millions of people. That's what they don't want to accept and acknowledge and take responsibility for the choices that they made out there in the West. When they see this much trouble in China, it's like a fetish. It just they jump at it. They're like, oh yeah, yeah. Now finally we see them rise up. They're comparing it to the largest protest that China's ever had in I don't know how many years. There's protests in China all the time. All the time, because well, implementation of rules is not that simple in a country this large, be it COVID, be it employment like at Foxconn, right? So keep it into perspective that there is a large amount of people rooting for this to escalate. I don't know how many people are able to be brainwashed by this liberal minds that, well, they can follow on Twitter, they can follow on YouTube, right?
A lot. A
People
lot.
people like Gordon Chang. Gordon Chang saying like, "Oh, this is the beginning. I can see it happening. Oh, this is the spark that is going to, yeah, support the youth, support the youngsters." So he is actually aroused by the idea of chaos and mayhem in China. It's something that he has been dreaming for the last 20 something years.
What is it with these people, Fernando? What is it? These people feed on they feed on negativity and darkness. Twitter is a freaking cesspool, and these people feed on it. They want it, they enjoy it and crave it like a drug. They want it's the West. Why is the West so violent? China is the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, civil, and peaceful country on the planet. It's risen up to become a world power over the last 4 decades. What country has China attacked? How many bullets has China fired in what country on planet Earth in over 40 years, almost half a century? Somebody in the audience, in the comments, answer my question. Oh, sure, Mario. Zero. Why is the West so goddamn violent? And they revel in it, and they encourage it, and they want it. It's just unbelievable. And whether it's European, I mean, this comes, the hell is it, man? Is it in the genes of the white man or something? I mean, honestly, this was the colonizers of the Europeans, which was actually, it's funny, it was the Dutch
Mm.
and the French, and they went out, right? and and they massacred people. They massacred all the yellow and the red folks. They went out and massacred them all and took over their lands. So, I mean, this is from the European descent, right? Okay, and then of course they went to America, and then they went ahead and genocided the Indians. Okay, and
then
now
they
they
went
just
to Africa.
look, it's right, the situation in Africa, and then they just now they're doing it to everybody. I mean, no matter what, they just want war, and they feed on all this evil and violence and darkness. Listen to me. I don't want any of it. I don't want to be involved in any of it. I don't want to be anywhere freaking near it. That's
You
why I
know
like
what?
living in China. I live in a country with no goddamn guns. Do you understand me? I live in a country where my child and his mother and his grandmother never think about. Nobody in China thinks about whether they can go out on the street at 10 o'clock at night. It's not a problem. I want that safety and stability, not just for me, but it's the protection of my family. I'm a man. So as a man, I choose where my family will live. I won't expose them to danger. Do you understand me? This is common sense as a human being. This is China. This is the safety and stability and peace that we live in here in China. And it comes with a price. There's a little bit less freedom to say whatever the hell you think you want to say. That doesn't make me lose my happiness. I don't lose my happiness and well-being because I can't say that Xi Jinping has funny looking hair and I think he's a jerk. It doesn't benefit me at all to be able to say that with
Doesn't
freedom of
change
speech.
anything.
It doesn't change anything. It doesn't affect what's important in my life, which is the well-being and safety and protection and future of my family. Wake up,
I have
people.
enjoyed 22 years of feeling as safe as I have ever been. In
Thank you.
Colombia, the danger is palpable. You go out on the streets, you fear getting mugged, your car getting stolen, getting shot. I came to China and I could not believe that it was possible to be this free, this safe.
Incredible.
You know when my mind started to change and I started to fear living in China? With all this situation in Taiwan, with all this escalation from the West against China, with all these lies and manipulation that we saw taking place in Xinjiang, in Hong Kong, and that's when I became vocal. Like you're messing with the country that is the safest I have ever lived in. Now
Yeah.
you're messing with it with
And you're
lies
saying,
and
they're evil and they're the
changing
threat.
policies. And so let's talk about the Taiwan elections.
Oh yeah, what's her
President
name?
pre,
She
President
stepped
lost.
down from her.
She's gone. Now the
Bye bye.
leader, now the leader is a KMT. It's a person that supports China reunification. Now,
I
does that
forgot
mean
about
that this is going to happen right away? No. But it means that the people in Taiwan spoke. The people in Taiwan saw that this crazy lady is risking our lives. Because do remember, Xi Jinping said very clearly, we want peaceful reunification, but we will defend Taiwan from foreign interference. What did she do through all her time as the president of Taiwan? Invite these enemies, invite this foreign interference into Taiwan. The Pelosi's, the Mike Pompeo's, all these congressmen and the Lithuanians, and just bring them here just to you know put coals on the fire to keep the fire growing and growing. That's what she did. And the people in Taiwan are like, whoa, 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 what are you doing, lady? What are you doing? This is only benefiting you and the military industrial complex. And they went to the voting tables and they chose to remove her. 5 out of 22 of the seats were they able to keep. her party was decimated. Those things that they were pushing for were absolutely destroyed. So today, Taiwan will begin to change. But again, there's a lot of liberals in Taiwan. There's a lot of ways to interfere in Taiwan by Western forces. So we're not out of the woods. And we got to keep an eye on that. But I just wanted to share that with the people. The fact that she's out and that line of politics is done, it's something that we can breathe a little bit easier. But keep an eye on that, because that doesn't make the Western forces happy.
May I?
Sure, please do.
I told you so. I told you so. I did. Please, if you haven't already subscribed to Mr. Ma's Counterpoint China, go my Substack newsletter. Please subscribe. Go to it and read the articles that I wrote 3 months ago, immediately after Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. And I clearly declared the situation. And I told you, and a couple of very prominent people privately spoke to me and said, nicely, I mean, good people, prominent, smart people, they said, Mario, yeah, all good stuff, but I disagree. I disagree with your point of view. And what was my point of view? I said very clearly, after what happened with Pelosi, I said, whether you realize it or not, I said, I am telling you, China took control of Taiwan. You notice that Washington went silent. You know why Washington went silent after the Pelosi visit? Okay, and this is in my place. So this is all, I laid this all out in the article, Fernando. And the title of my article was, Oops, because that was the word being uttered in Washington for the 2 weeks after the Pelosi visit. Oops, oops, she went, oops, look now, China took control of Taiwan. We can't get it back. We're not going to get it back now. They changed the table. They reshuffled the cards. They screwed the whole thing up, and it all ended up China took control of Taiwan. And I said this very clearly. So how did they do that? And I said, well, we know what they did. They immediately surrounded the island with a surge of additional military. They ran their military drills for several weeks. And I said, well, the military drills are just for show. I don't care about the military drills. What I care about is that they're now on their guard. They'll never, they put up the military around the island, okay? And now they're
not letting go.
Now they're never going to trust you ever again. Ever. They'll never let it go again. They're never gonna. It's like, Fernando, you screwed me over 10 times. And every time I open the door and let you in again, and I open the door. Now they're done, man. They're not ever gonna trust you again. They're never gonna open the door again. They took control. And the way they also took control, I want to say technically, and again, I can't prove this, but I know I'm right, okay, because I haven't been wrong about China in 24 years, okay, and that what is internally. I said back then, they're not taking control publicly other than the military thing, but behind the scenes, okay, through the internal unknown channels, they're taking control. And what happened next, okay? A Taiwan delegation, was a Beijing delegation going to Taiwan? No, a Taiwan delegation was going to Beijing. What do you think they were discussing? Didn't I say internal channels, private communication? That's what was going to happen. I said it, and then there that was. Plus all whatever other internal communication. On top of which I said the final thing about Taiwan, which was, the West doesn't want you to understand that there isn't a problem between
nothing.
Sorry, Alex is going to come on in 15 minutes. Send him the StreamYard link.
Okay.
Fernando. I
Yeah.
just was saying, I lost my thought. He sent that to me. Okay. I was I had said about Taiwan. Okay, I got it back. I got my thought back. I had said
Okay.
that in addition, you understand, well, how could there be? Say, well, Mario, what's Mario talking about? How does he know there's going to be internal channel communications, which of course are completely isolated between China and Taiwan, between mainland Beijing and Taiwan? How could there be internal channels which would be completely protected from any outside interference, right? And Washington knew that. They were like, oh shit, we screwed up so bad. We have no way to influence the situation anymore. China took control of it. And now they're doing internal dialogue between Beijing and Taiwan. This is what I said. Well, how could that be? Is there a basis upon which that could occur? And that's the other lie, that between Taiwan and Beijing, there's like a problem. And there isn't. The relationship between Beijing and Taiwan, the relationship between the Taiwan people and the Chinese people, and this was the third part of my article, is wonderfully friendly and long-term and deep and rich. There's like a million Taiwanese people who live in mainland China. There's countless Taiwanese companies who do business in mainland China. Down in Strait, there's people going back and forth daily doing business with each other. There's a
In Fujian.
fruitful, respectful relationship, a rich relationship between Beijing and Taiwan. There always has been. 44% or 3 or 7, 43 or 47% of Taiwan's exports go to, ta-da, mainland China. Fernando, so I wrote all this in my article back then. I said China took control of Taiwan. China's already got great relations with, meaning Beijing, right? The government folks who are talking to each other. And there's no problem between the mainland and Taiwan. And there's no problem between the people. Ask any of them. No, we're all great. It's a rich, long, deep, huge, important relationship, and nothing has ever interfered with it. All the interference has always been out there, outside the periphery, by the United States, with and through who? The woman. That woman, Tsai Ing-wen. And what did I say? I said China took control of Taiwan. I told you guys. And now look what just unfolded. What are we, 4 months down the line, 6 months down the line? And she's bye-bye. She's bye-bye. Gee, is that a coincidence? I
People
won. I was
were
right. I'm not being
you
proud
won.
of saying it.
There's
Go
one more
ahead.
thing that fits into this formulation, into the reason why she was defeated and had to step down as the leader of the party.
Did you send the link to Alex?
Yes, she literally handed the cheap manufacturing industry to the United States. That is going to kill a large chunk of the
Explain.
economy of
Please explain.
Taiwan.
I'm not up on what you just said. What are you referring to here?
Well, basically, they decided that they didn't want Taiwan to be sharing technology with any other parties except China, and
Yeah.
they are going to invest a chip manufacturing facility in the United States. That is already moving forward, literally killing the manufacturing capability of Taiwan. That's what this woman did. She allowed for that to happen, destroying a huge part of the edge that Taiwan had over
So
any
she
other competitor in the area
so
or in the
so
world, really.
she did to Taiwan factories and people what the Americans did, what the American government did to the American manufacturing industry, sending it to China, and then she did that, sending it to America. Oh, brilliant woman.
So
Brilliant.
this is one of the other reasons why she left. Let us circle back to COVID. Okay, COVID situation
Go.
in Taiwan is really serious. A lot of people pushing for this new vaccine to be accepted into China. There's a lot of discussion about that, but the most clear reference would be what you have in Taiwan, one of the highest vaccinated populations in Asia with this vaccine, and look where they are with their cases. That is not a good idea. If I need to get a booster, if I need to suggest to anyone um, what the path should be, would be to stay away from the mRNA vaccine for the time being.
It's
All you hear
irrelevant.
is, sorry,
Beijing is not. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there.
Beijing ain't gonna let it. No way. They had no thought to let it in.
So the situation with this new wave of COVID, it's a response to the relaxation of measures that was announced after the 20th, and we're dealing with that right now. We are dealing with this situation at the moment and trying to figure out how can we have a a more flexible existence, a more flexible normalcy without putting millions of people at risk. That's what we're trying to do. So it's is the challenge for China, is the challenge for Beijing, is the challenge for the leadership of the country. Now, all I say to people is follow closely what is taking place with these protests and give it time. Give it time. This is just people jumping on a very emotional reaction to what has taken place, and it's understandable. It is completely understandable, but the leaders know better. Science tells us better, and they know that what they need to do is continue to trace, test, vaccinate. Now, there's always the issue of, is there an monetary incentive to to continue this testing, to continue this quarantining? That is a discussion worth having. However, that is completely parallel to the truth that zero COVID protects the lives of people. So, if there are testing all over the country again and again and again, daily or every 24, every 48 hours or every 72 2 hours, that's billions of tests per day. Billions of tests per day.
It's breaking
And
the
there
country.
are,
It's too expensive.
and it's a few companies that actually take care of this. Is there the possibility for manipulation of information? Let me give you an idea. Let's say someone tested positive, but we let it go so that there is a little bit more issue. It's possible. Remember, there's capitalism in China. Is it possible that someone tests negative and they pass it as positive? There are some people reporting these cases. So this is where this needs controls. It needs to be more state managed so that profits and shareholders and capitalists don't take advantage of the work that the government is trying to do. Again, as I said from the beginning, I'm not here to lie to you. I'm not here to cover things up. These are things that have happened and that could happen again. But there are measures in place to stop this from happening. So um, I'm telling you, zero COVID is not going to be let go. It will continue to be refined, and it will continue to listen to what people are saying, listen to what people are expressing in their protests, and there's going to be some leeway. There's going to be some give, something that the government will give to appease the situations that are putting people under so much stress. For example, you will never hear again of anyone locking doors from the outside.
Right,
You will
right,
never hear that
right.
again.
Which never should have been happening in the first place, and it'll never, ever, ever happen again. And yes, it's a tragedy, and yes, it's terrible that people had to die for them to finally figure that out, etc. Yes, all those bad things, yes. is the price to pay. And yes, that is tragic and terrible. And thank
That's
God, though, it's
that's
never going to happen again.
implementation, not principle. That is failure of implementation, is not a flaw of the principle. That's an
Right.
important thing to
Oh,
differentiate.
Fernando, may I? May I?
Yep.
This is what people on, again, it's the negative Twitter cesspool who wants to attack China, and their method for attacking China over and over and over again is to bring up the exception to the rule. China
Yeah.
is one of the safest, most safe, stable, peaceful countries on planet Earth. Harvard, Western organizations tell you that, not Chinese. Harvard, Edelman PR, annual surveys. No group of people on planet Earth trust their government more than the Chinese people who trust the Chinese government. Right along side by side with Singapore, by the way. It's always 1 and 2, right? And no group of people, okay, are living in a country with such a wonderfully low crime rate, safe, stable, peaceful. And then some Twitter idiot tweets below it, oh yeah, and they send a picture of a protest or of a policeman beating somebody and says, oh yeah, it's safe or it's peaceful. And I'm just like, you said it in a different way. The thing doesn't negate the principle. And this is what I keep telling. I'm like, this is your lame argument. This is an exception to the rule. We live in a country with this is how they argue. This is how it's just such a waste of time. And they do it to deceive people, and people fall for it. This is what's so unfortunate. People really fall for it. You're talking about COVID. I want to bring it up because you've asked like in a few different ways. You're bringing it up. What's next? What the hell are we going to do? Is zero COVID going to end? And again, everybody, please, yesterday I had written a nice long piece doing a full update on the COVID policy. Since they relaxed the measure, they offered the more relaxed measures after the Arshada, after the 20th National Congress. What's happened since then and right up till now? I wrote up a nice long article. Several people have read it and said to me, Mario, this is an excellent piece. Yep, thank you. So it would be very valuable for your knowledge and understanding to go and read that piece. And in that piece, Fernando said it. I said, zero COVID is not ending. Zero COVID is it's the opposite of ending. Okay, it's not going anywhere. This is when I said this is going to be permanent. What I mean by permanent is several years. Okay. Because if something's going to continue for the next several years, you may as well call it permanent. That's pretty darn permanent, right? So the question is, so what's next? And the answer is crystal clear. It's been crystal clear. 90 days ago, again, in an August update, or whatever it was, 60 days ago, Zhong Nanshan, again, the CDC head, another guy, whatever his name, doctor, I don't remember his name, they said, this is our parameters. The government releases these things, Fernando. Crystal clear. These are our parameters. When this and this and this happens, we're going to do this and this. The government is crystal clear. Okay. And it only boils down to what we've been saying again all along. I'm just transmitting this over to you. They are constantly assessing the data and adjusting based on the key factors. What are the key factors? The transmissibility, the severity, the percentages, right? Better vaccines that get rolled out, and they are in the pipeline. China's working on its own mRNA. China is never going to allow Chinese people to start taking Pfizer or Moderna, I think it is. Ain't going to happen, folks. Okay, because they're working on their own mRNA, which will hopefully have a far better level of improvement in terms of the severity of side effects, the myocarditis problem with those mRNAs. And I'm not necessarily bashing Pfizer or Moderna on that. It was an unusual situation to bring out a vaccine that had some protection without testing for 5-10 years, which is what's normal. It was a disastrous situation. These vaccines came out too fast. There's problems. There's concerns. Good, fine. I get all that. So I'm not saying all those things to like say you should hate Moderna or Pfizer. I'm not saying that. Not at all. But I'm pointing out that the vaccines need to be better, right? This is just a simple thing I'm saying. And China has now, what, 5-6 vaccines in the pipeline, 5-6 of their major companies, mRNAs and non-mRNAs, traditional vaccines in the pipeline that are even better than what they have now. And the Sinovac 3 shot now is just as effective as mRNA without any concerns about side effects. Okay, so that's where we're at on that. And they need to improve better therapeutics. Therapeutics meaning medicines that if you do get severe COVID symptoms, hey, we got some really good medicine that's going to help. All right. And that's desperately needed in the pipeline. And it's not there yet, which is why we're still in zero COVID. Do you understand? We're not there yet. Okay. Because long COVID is a serious, serious problem. And China
Long
is not
COVID is something that needs to be factored in.
25 million Americans, 8 million UK people are now suffering from long COVID. This is a disaster. Every number we share with you on this show, every number you can think of regarding how bad it is in the US or the UK or anywhere else, multiply by 4.3. That's what's going on. Next item, let me finish, Fernando, is the inventory of beds. Inventory of beds. They're building satellite hospitals so that when they do open up, if there are a lot of cases, because the current existing city hospitals don't have enough ICU beds. So they're building these satellite hospitals like they did in Wuhan earlier. And they're on the to be able to put more COVID patients who have ICU needs. And lastly, get more elderly vaxxed. They're behind on this. 30% of elderly haven't yet gotten their third booster. These are all the factors that they are looking at on a 24-hour basis, all the data. And this is where we're at, folks. Okay, now, Fernando, that's it. Go.
Well, friends, we are joined today by a very good friend of these two channels, Mario Cabolos and mine, with Alex from Reporter 5 Media. Alex, you are in Chongqing. We are discussing zero COVID being frustrating. You have experience with zero COVID being frustrating. How are you? And tell us what is new with you, and jump into the conversation.
Yeah, hey, good to see you guys. Thank you, Fernando, and thank you, Mario, for inviting me today. Appreciate that. Day 18 here, as we go into a pretty intense, I'm going to call it COVID prevention. The word lockdown is a little bit deceiving, but COVID prevention is more like it. And I'll tell you, I'm enjoying the home delivery now. I'm enjoying the pickup of my garbage out front of my door now daily. And the pretty much drive-through COVID tests, which are free. If you want a clean bill of health, this is the place to be here in Chongqing. That is for sure. So 18 days into it, keeping my sense of humor, but also understanding what this is all about. Does the West, the collective West, really want China to fail? Because that is really the message that they're sending loud and clear here. It's kind of like, nah. We want you to fail. We want your country to collapse. We want, they want to see a death count is what they want to see. And I'm just going to put that out there, that when you see the way that the media is geared over in the United States, I don't think anybody's talking about the killings in Chicago this weekend, right? No one brought that up.
No, Alex, they're perverted. They are perverted, and they have the media in America should be canceled tomorrow. They have perverted and twisted and destroyed the very character and spirit and fabric of America, of that once beautiful society. Screw them all. I have no respect for any of them. Go. Continue.
When I came to China last August, I knew what I was signing up for. Now, first of all, that was for signing up to come to a country that was safe. That's the first one. I left Thailand. Oh boy, if you saw my videos when I left Thailand, a barren, desolate, absolutely empty airport with most buildings and companies shuttered, still are shuttered. If the Thailand or the people that work and live in Thailand right now are telling you things are back to normal. They are sadly mistaken because 56% of their tourist market is still in China, and they are Chinese. And I think that same goes out for the rest of the world here, where if you think the world's gone back to normal, accepted it, maybe you or your country or your media has moved on from it, but it is still there. It still will be there. And here's the game that I think the media really enjoys. First, they saw the desperation on what. Let's look back at what the Italians went through at the start of this, or the Iranians, and then India, and this completely decimated the country. It broke its self-esteem. If this medical workers, I mean, the medical workers were under a colossal amount of work, and these images were shared all throughout the world. It spread throughout the United States. We saw it in Canada as well. I saw it in Thailand. I saw hospital beds out in parking lots. You can see them on my live streams. I drove by and said, wow, okay. And China sent out the message around the world, guys, it's coming. Get ready. It's coming. No, it's not the flu. It's much more than that. Now, most of the world ignored it. 186 countries decided to have the let it rip mentality. Sorry, guys, that ain't going to happen. And for all those people that say that China has this draconian measures, you just simply don't understand how the culture and how the people care about each other here. Just in this city alone, there are now, as we speak today, over 517,000 volunteers supporting and helping people in need. We've seen a temporary COVID facility being built. As you heard Mario spoke before, this isn't in emergency if we need to have it because it's overflowing. It is in preparation just in case. And that's what happens to a responsible government that has the money and has the infrastructure and has the know-how to build this in preparation just in case. If it doesn't happen, we hope it doesn't. And these ICU beds or these containment areas aren't needed. Great, hallelujah. All good news. You take it down just as fast as you built it. That's my thoughts on that as we get into this conversation. I'll pass it back over to Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Well, I am amazed at the numbers that you mentioned. And as I said in the video that I did with you, it is such an important thing for me to always thank the people who are testing me. I always make sure to go out and say to them, hey, Sinkula, thank you for your work, because a lot of the people that are working in these test areas are volunteers. And this is why it is so distasteful, so disgraceful, so offensive to me when I see people abusing the people giving you a service, abusing the people volunteering, putting their lives at risk to serve you and protect you and keep you safe. These are not military. These are not government officials. These are neighbors, people who have families, who live around you, who just work in this area and decide to volunteer so that you can be tested, so that you can be placed in a safe quarantine location, or that you can get your food if you are in an area that is protected. These people are working for you for free, and you do have to respect them. It is utterly upsetting to me when I see people disrespecting them. And it's been so long that we forget how long these people have sacrificed themselves, how long these people have been doing this. It's mind-blowing when you think that the amount of solidarity within the country, and you think that a couple of people in Shanghai shouting, it doesn't compare. You cannot compare the millions of people working to keep this thing under control and keeping people safe to 1,000 libtards in Shanghai shouting. No, it doesn't compare. It just doesn't compare. But the Western media, with their zoom lens, right? Looking at, oh, look at what they're saying, look at what they're shouting, look at what they and then you swallow it. The people out there in the West swallow all this and they believe that this is what's going to bring China down. It's so pathetic. How do you feel about the situation in Shanghai, Alex? What do you know? Where do you stand on that?
I mean, none of this is easy. There's no book on how to really solve every city, every part of this. This is a big country. This is a big problem, I think, worldwide. But let's go back to the policies that were put in place in March of 2020. Has anything changed? No. Status quo. We continue to move forward on what we know best. The other thing that China has on its side is it uses big data. Now, unfortunately, big data to other nations around the world is a naughty word because a lot of people are scared of it. They feel that, well, my privacy is going to be invaded. Let me just clarify your average mobile phone is connected to the Google Play. Your average mobile phone is connected to the Google Play Station or the Google Play Store, and what happens, that phone gets pinged all the time. Just to give you an example, what Google does is it contacts a shopping mall, and it'll contact all the merchants inside the shopping mall, and it will be able to tell the merchants what time a male, female between the ages of 16, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66 will come into the mall, how long they'll stay in the mall, at what their movements are, what their GPS movements are, and what kind of transactions they make. That data is available now already to the private sector, of course, and of course to the government if they want that. So let's take that off for a side. I've lived in Thailand during this pandemic, and it was a colossal nightmare. The application that the government built, no one used it. No one really understood it. And no one, frankly, actually cared to use it. They would kind of go scan, or, some security guard would get you to write down your phone number on a piece of paper with no contact tracing apps. So here we are. We fast forward to the end of 2022, and we have a well-functioning application that works very well, and it updates very well. And yes, it's color coded from a green, amber to a red. Very simple, very easy to understand. If you got red, look out. That means that either somebody close to you or somebody in your building has caught COVID, and you'll get a call. Thank God you'll get a call. If we go back 2 years ago, and I think of the situation where I was in Thailand, it was extremely stressful because the let it rip mentality was rocking and rolling there, and people were just dying. They were dying everywhere. It got so bad that the government used tents that they would put under the bridge to house or, try to make sure that they were doing their best to keep people alive. But Thailand got hit. All these other countries got hit, and they continue to get hit. Now we have uprisings. Now the media likes to glorify these. But once again, is it a slow news day or is it a active news day in China? I think it's a normal news day here in China. Yeah, we're dealing with some COVID prevention. It's going to take a while to clear these cases up. But once again, time is on our side. Now it's on our side because the government that's been in place here stayed within their boundaries and saying, here's the strategy, here's the science, here's the know-how, and this is what we're going to do. Now, yes, are citizens still afraid of COVID here? You better believe they are. You got to remember, maybe in your country, it's off the front pages. But you got to remember, 1 million people had to attend funerals in the last year or two in the United States of America. 1 million people. Okay. And we're not talking about the other 800 million that have been infected by this. There is a shortage in the workforce. It's not because people are lazy. It's not because they don't want to work. It's because they're ill. And that is happening all over the collective West countries where they can't fill these positions simply because people are sick, massively sick. And it's not to say that China doesn't want this to end. Of course it has to, but you got to remember the numbers here are colossal, and you can't have that mentality. So China, they take the slower route. Seems to work in their manufacturing strategy, seems to work in their Belt Road Initiative, playing the long game, seems to work in their latest space programs. And they're following the science and the doctor's advice and the experts' advice here in a nation. That's right. I know it's hard for some of these people that live in nations that people only care about themselves, but this is one country, a huge one, that's not open. That means you, the world, if you're a business owner, hotel owner, anything to do in tourism or business overseas or import, export, you should rally behind this country because it affects you no matter where you are in the world. You can't tell me that the second largest, disputably, one of the largest countries in the world is going through this right now. You need to rally behind China and be positive. But if you want to be negative, I'm sorry, wishful thinking, it's not going to happen here. Looks like over to Mario, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
These two things, Alex, that you said so well. If you are rooting for China to fail and do poorly, you are not thinking. Okay. The last thing on God's green earth that anybody on planet Earth wants is for China in any way, shape, or form to have problems and fail. Alex, you just pointed it. I mean, it just hits the nail right on the head, man. This is the absolute fact. This is the absolute reality. Gee, man.
Look, I was discussing this with a friend, a reporter, and going back to where it all started, and we were saying like, look, if only the world had done what China did at the beginning of 2020.
We couldn't.
If only the world had done the same thing for a month, the virus would have died. The virus would have died and the world would have moved on. So the question is, why didn't they? Why didn't the world follow the science that China was following?
The
Because
people, the neoliberal society wouldn't allow it. Their minds are too selfish and too
you
rooted in
cannot tell me
neoliberalism.
to lock down. You cannot tell me to lock down for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks, for 8 weeks. What am I going to do? What is this going to cost to the country? Well, it would have cost a lot less than what it is costing right now in lost venue, lost revenue, lost income, lost business, lost trade, lost lives. It would have been so much cheaper to do what China did at a global um, sphere, at a global what's the word that I'm trying to look for? At a global level, at a global scale, it would have been much cheaper to do what China did for a few months. But that was the situation. China knew what they wanted to do. We can kill the virus this way. But the world decided, no, we're going to go for herd immunity. And this has put it in a situation where China is the only country that knows how to control it, that has the will to control it, because politically and socially, the West has lost the game. I remember Boris Johnson saying, like, just gotta face it, people are gonna die. Trump saying, just stop testing, slow down the testing. The more you test, the more you find. Just forget about it. That's throwing in the towel within year one. But
Yeah.
here in China, you do have a government that does have the will to keep people safe. But where does that put us? Different variants, different streams, different viruses that are mutating and changing in this pool of Western countries. And they're saying, open the door, open the door, open the door. Do you think China is going to open to all these people walking around, going to the World Cup in Qatar without wearing any mask? Do you think they're going to open up to those people to bring even worse variants, even worse viruses, and worse consequences for China and the world? Of course they won't. They are going to relax situations inside, but to the outside, you're gonna have to play by China's rules. You want to come in, you're gonna have to play by China's rules. Mario, what's your new take?
I don't have it. I'm good. I'm good. I'm really good. I'm so happy we had. You know, we've said I feel we've said all the main key things that need to be said. We can't do anything about the fact that it hurts me so much that there's people who won't listen. No, not even people who won't listen, but people who are actually even insulting and abusing and harassing. That's even worse, right? And it makes me incredibly upset because we know the truth, and I'm good. I'm good. Alex, off to you.
Yeah, I think, this word lockdown again, I'm going to call it covert prevention because that's what it is. We did say that, the let it rip mentality, but let me just run some numbers through you guys, okay? All right, here, let's have a look here. Metropolitan Melbourne, 78-day lockdown. Let's have a look at some other countries. Cambodia, 57-day lockdown. Bangladesh, 10-day lockdown extended to 35 days. Denmark, 47 days in lockdown. India, extended from 7 to 14 to 28 to 37 days in lockdown. Italy, we are talking countries that did lock down big time, okay? But with no strategy. No strategy at all. Thailand had a huge lockdown, guys. Huge lockdown.
China's strategy is amazing.
Zero.
This app and tracking and everything that China's capable has rolled out and implemented nationwide is a technological frickin' societal miracle. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I'm going to read here about Malaysia since somebody brought it up. Malaysia introduced a nationwide movement control order called the MCO on the 18th of March 2020, which initially was announced to last to the 14th of April. Start doing the math there, but was extended several times. The MCO prohibited mass gatherings, movement within the country, and most industries and all education institutions were ordered to close. Extended movement control orders were implemented in areas where suspect super spreading events or widespread transmission had occurred. Okay. These are countries that are now. You want to know who didn't organize or who didn't get their SHIT together? Look at their inflation. Look what's going on in those countries right now. Massive inflation going on. The government borrowed lots of money. They can't tax because it's a terrible time to tax. So the hidden tax is going in inflation. You don't think the government is making money back off inflation? Think about it. You used to buy something for $5, and if you're, let's say, taxed at 20% of that, that's $1 tax. Well, now you buy it for 10, and the government gets 2 or even 4 of those dollars. Okay, depending on what tax frame you're in. If you use the typical VAT in Europe, it's 20%. Well, if the prices are doubled, they're still getting that 20% on double the price. So they're collecting it back. They have to. They threw too much money against the wall. They didn't put it into their infrastructure. They didn't put it into their medical system. They didn't put it into a contact tracing app. They didn't put it into COVID prevention. They didn't put it. Okay. Now, some countries did put money in. My hat is off to some of the people that put a ton of money into finding a vaccination. But during that whole process, how many people lost their lives worldwide? And still, when we did come up with a vaccination, what on earth was the Canadian government, my own government, doing during that time? Vaccinations were arriving. Well, you've got to remember the first vaccinations that came out, they were temperature sensitive. Do you guys remember that? They could only be shipped with a certain type of shipment and cooled. Well, where's the Canadian military, our strong Canadian military, that there were hardly any conflicts going on with my military? Why weren't they set up every 10 miles up the Trans-Canada Highway, which goes 8,000 kilometers end to end, vaccinating people? Oh, well, we can't. Why? Why can't you? Oh, well, I don't know. We might be offending people. It's a world pandemic, guys, and we dropped the ball. Now you're paying for it. Now you're seeing it in your cost of goods. That's why a loaf of bread's doubled. That's why it costs almost $1 for an egg in bloody Canada. I mean, this is it. You say, well, we got over it. No, you haven't got over it, because you have a world of debt to pay. And that debt is on the incompetence of governments that clearly don't care for its people. And here in China, I have not seen the price of any single item go up iota, zero to me in the last 18 months.
Just a bit.
Not to me.
Mild inflation.
In your
Fernando,
neck of the woods, maybe. Not to me, though.
Yeah. Alex, if you're done, I have a suggestion. Are you done? Are you good, Alex?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Fernando, I have a suggestion. I noticed that we didn't do this yet. There's a lot of really excellent comments in the comment section. And there's a number that are by Hang Tua and some other folks. And so take some time to go through that and let's address what some of those are. We're on the podcast. They're a great audience. I'd love to, let's respond to what some of the things that they're saying, because there's some really great comments and meaningful comments.
Here's one. You can travel in and out of China. Why do people say that China is closed? Well, because it's not easy. And people are hoping that it will be as easy to go in and out as it was before. That's why they say that China is not open. It's also expensive to come into China these days. So, no, it's not back to normal. That's why people are saying that it is closed, but it has to remain so. Again, with the amount of variants that are coming up, and with the amount of people that are getting asymptomatic travelers and things like that, you really need to be cautious not to let your guard down. So China is closed, as in you can come, but it's going to be expensive, and it's going to be troublesome, just to make sure that you are not bringing anything that could jeopardize all the
Let me add to the
energy.
Can I add something on to that? I see where Hang is coming here on his point, though. He's made a good point here, because we continue to see border shut down, border closed, everything's go. No, it's not really that way. I get your point, Fernando, but also he's saying that the media has slanted it that borders closed, and they don't understand that, first of all, we can domestically, when things are calm here, we can travel anywhere around. To me, that's it. But if you asked me a couple of weeks ago, is China open? I would say, well, if you're okay with a 5-day and 3-day quarantine, yeah, it is open. And that's what I think that's his point, where he's making that the mainstream or the collective West media is not saying that message. They still say to the average person's doors slammed. Like they'll say, let me just clarify this a little bit more, okay? They're going to say China is still closed with their draconian COVID measures, still to this insanity of a 5-day quarantine. They'll call it a 5-day draconian quarantine, followed by a 3-day at-home observation. That's what he's saying, that it's not portrayed that way. And I think if people want to come to China now, you got to be prepared for what part of this panel is going through right now. There's going to be some restrictions. There's going to be some hoops you got to jump through. But if you're determined enough and you want to come into this country, go down, visit your local embassy. Flights are not cheap. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not. I was going to tell you, flights are another barrier still. That's a big barrier.
What about visas? Well. A lot of people say that visas are only issued to people who have family here, or people who have reason to be here, as in work, job offers. So China's
business. I'm seeing business. Some are being approved now.
As well, but I doubt tourism is open.
No,
you cannot
not tourism.
Come here to tour around China.
No.
We're not at that point level. So, yeah, this is why probably media just pick on that particular thing.
It's distorted intentionally, Mario and Fernando. It's distorted intentionally. There's, even when China opens, watch what's going to happen. And when I say fully opens, pardon my language, you're going to hear, be careful if you go there, because you might get stuck, or stuff like that. And they're really damaging. And it's amazing. I've thought about this for a moment on how they might open this place up, and let me throw this out to you guys and see if I'm a bit crazy. See if I'm a bit crazy here. What China has done here is, you know, set up a contact tracing app that is just like a normal app on our phone now. To me, it's I actually enjoy opening it sometimes. Now I like it. And numbers are going down. All right, you know, go Xinjiang, you know, or go Shenzhen, you know, numbers coming out. It's kind of like a scoreboard for me. It's gone from an app to it's a friendly app, and then you click on it. Yeah, I'm green, man. I'm green. You know, it's kind of like a clean bill, and you're like, okay, I can get on with my day. You go to the shopping malls, and I'm happy to just beep, you know, beep, 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 show the code and go in, and everything's okay. But what I think, and I have a feeling here that the IT behind this, can you imagine the data going on behind this, what it tells cities and municipalities and blocks and buildings and shopping malls and everything, how detailed it is.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that we're going to get to the point where they're going to send us our own testing kits where we will be able to scan with our phone and just drop it off. No more no more mass testing places. You just test yourself, drop it off into whether it's a local pickup box or location, you know, like you used to drop off and pick up video.
Like a mailbox.
Like a mailbox. And there'll be drivers driving around. Nobody, but I know it sounds crazy, but go back 3 years ago. Do you think we'd be standing in line getting, you know, things in our throat to get tested with contact tracing apps on the phone? No. This country has the logistics and ability to actually test that out. And I wouldn't be surprised if through my mailbox here comes 50 a box of 50 test kits and says, you know, to activate, scan it on your phone. Scan, because it's all down to the QR code here, guys, in China. Okay, there's no messing around with that code. You say, I don't need to scan. You ain't going anywhere. Or, well, I can lie about it. No, you don't, because you know the consequences behind it. So I think it could get to the point where self-testing, which eases, first of all, but then also confines people. Now, it could be as easy as this. You get a pop-up on your phone. It says, okay, X district in this city for the next 3 days, upload a test. Submit your test. Submit your test. Okay, they narrow it down. Alex, they find it. Sorry?
Alex, so what you're saying is, because we have this, this is a very appropriate moment for me to jump in, so forgive me. What you're saying is exactly, I'm going to tell you there's another secondary app situation already happening that fits what your scenario is. And that is in the phone. Okay, it's our son goes to the school, okay, which happens to be QSI International School. Fabulous school, by the way. Let me give him a good plug for China. Okay, so he's there. Now, they, as required by the Xinjiang government, of course, schools with kids and all the, you know, policies, zero COVID policies. We shut the school down. You go to online classes, which we are currently, whatever it might be. The schools obviously are in direct and core, crystal clear contact communication with the government ministry office for the education bureau, okay, and coordinating with the COVID bureau. So now I want to tell you what you just said is already happening, which is the school is in some kind of a enterprise system app, and the school sends out this link it's a mini app, WeChat mini program, right? So the WeChat mini program exists. It's in some kind of an enterprise app between the schools and the education bureau. And it says, classic, exactly what you just said. Daily testing for the students is required. And when they send you the app, they send you the link, right? It's upload your students' test results. That's what it is. It's upload your students' test results. So that app, we've been doing this for weeks, months, okay? So we're doing it. Neither of you have kids, so you don't realize this. So there is this app that exists that's already that you test and you upload your students' results to the school, which means it goes to the Education Bureau and the COVID testing bureau. So what you just said exists, except it's not self-testing yet. So Alex, you're saying we're going to go to self-testing right now. What's happening right now is
I was talking to my wife.
The burden,
I was talking to my wife earlier about that. There is work in progress towards implementing self-testing mechanisms, something that is going to give people a lot more freedom, and well, yeah, as you said, everything is just there. So that will make people not having to congregate in one place to test it, which is something that a lot of people worried about that. Oh, but I don't want to be tested because I don't want to be around people that might be carrying the inconvenience of time and whatnot.
The cost to the government. The municipal governments are going broke paying for all this testing. This is killing their budgets. The burden is on. We have to upload our son's student testing in the app. Alex, that exists. So you're on the right. You're right on the right track. You don't have kids. Neither of you has kids. You don't know this. So that app already exists, man.
I think another thing, and let
me finish, please. But the testing burden is on the government now. The testing burden. So you're saying, Alex, there's a beautiful transition to the next evolution of this thing, which is moving the testing burden from the government municipality onto the individual households. The app is already in place, brother. So we're good.
Yeah. Brilliant. And it might not be the big tests. Like there are other tests for COVID that are less intensive. I mean, we're getting if you look at the PCR tests that we get here, are extremely expensive in other countries. If we go to, I believe it's the ones that you can do it manually, and test and send those out. That's another thing. And people will probably say, yeah, well, how can you trust anybody? Or, what if somebody's got it? Look with the blink of an eye, this code goes red on everybody's phone in my entire building. No one's going farther than a few blocks because you're not getting in any banks or shopping malls or anything. You're pretty much getting out in the street, and you're not going into any underground subway or monorail or bus or and that's where it works. They have the ability to shut a grid down quickly, and they have the ability to say, okay, this guy's out of his area and he was in that area. They're going to call you. They have that. But it's another way that if everything is going well, the numbers are manageable, everything's fine. If they're not, then they very quickly with these applications can get everybody right back into line very quickly. That needs to be when you have something like this happen. Oh, man. I mean, but yeah, Alex, I forget. Yep, go ahead.
You're implying, though, you're implying something. And the something you're implying is a very serious point for, quote, libertarians and neo-libertarians, because what you're saying is, wow, you are describing a true controlling authoritarian society. Hang on. Or wait a minute. Or wait, now, because I want to contrast what I'm saying it this way on purpose. Or wait a minute. Aren't you just describing a society that says you belong in a society? You're not just an individual. You have an obligation of civic duty to the community and the people around you. And we all need to work together to keep each other safe and healthy. And that's called civic duty. And so if you want to call it authoritarian control and a nightmare and make it a negative thing, you can. But no, you call it civic duty to the community and the people around you. And that's normal. That's normal.
Yeah, to get back to what Alex was saying, I mean, this kind of control and monitoring and tracking already exists commercially. they're doing it to you already. This would be
Of course.
doing it for the well-being of people, for the protection of people, for a good cause, not making other advertising companies money. Sorry, Alex, I interrupted you.
Yeah, it's not the fact, like, that word control. No, it's responsibility. I mean, if there was a
Thank
fire,
you.
firemen would put up barriers and say, don't come in. If a building is on fire, firemen would stay out. This is an application that's saying, be safe, take a test. And yeah, I mean, really, if you're that bothered by a green code on your phone, you know, and then you have people that say, oh yeah, wow, that sounds magical. Oh, I really want to move there. Jesus, I'm going to tell you something. Head to Thailand during the pandemic. I never, ever, ever want to live through something like that ever again. That was the most horrific year of seeing people sick, seeing people die over there on a country that doesn't really care. Hang makes another amazing part here, that if it was an authoritarian country, they would have forced all the elderly. There's no one forcing anybody to take vaccinations here, and anybody that says that, they're outright lying. There's no one forcing anyone. But this is a different country, and if you don't like it, don't come here. Period. If you don't want to come here, no one's forcing you to come here. But last point I'm going to say, a lot of countries did show their true colors through this COVID times. And I'm going to continue to berate my country of Canada. My country of Canada managed to seize people's bank accounts that were against the system, and get into their personal data and lock their bank accounts down for weeks on end. And there's currently a tribunal going on with our prime minister right now. You want to talk about authoritarian? You just Google Justin Trudeau and bank accounts seized, and it's all over the place. And they felt they were totally fine within, let's bring in a national emergency. He brings in a national emergency after everything's pretty much over. And yeah, that's been dragging through this tribunal that's been going on in Canada for 30 days. So, you know, when we have people that either come to our shows or say these kind of crazy things about China, either A, clearly they didn't learn anything while they were here in the country, and they probably just sucked back a few beers and, enjoyed what they felt was the highlight of China. But no, this country is going to come out of this. It's going to come out of it with a bit of strength. And I'll tell you, if something ever happens in the future again, God forbid, forbid it happens, but these guys know how to deal with it. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
There's something in the university of, I forgot which one in the United States, that is supposed to be 90% mortality rate. So yeah, there's things that are far worse that could be coming our way. But I wanted to address this comment right here, because
Yes.
this person says there are more advantages ending zero COVID policy than continuing with it. That
How
is
can
not
someone believe that? It's just so
exactly.
wrong.
What are the advantages? You could travel, you could work, you could get COVID, you could get long COVID, and you could give it to your grandparents and they would die. What other advantages? I mean, oh, sorry, those were not advantages. Those were really, really horrible things that could happen for the pleasure of traveling or working, which you could be doing at home like many people are. I don't know, really. I mean, when people talk about the advantages of stopping zero COVID, I don't know what they're talking about.
I
This
do.
has
I
saved
do.
millions of people. Mario.
I do.
Individualism.
It's a degree of selfishness, or because everyone's not. It's not that for everyone. So I don't want to say for sure that person may not. It may not be, because that person is really individualistic and selfish and neoliberal. It's because they believe it's not that severe. The only way you could believe that lifting zero COVID is a better idea is if you believed that current COVID Omicron variants are no worse than the annual flu or the common cold. And I wrote that in my article yesterday. I went after Andrew Tate. He is a huge influencer with millions of followers, and he refers to his refusal. Everyone should refuse to wear masks. It's ridiculous. for the common cold. And that makes Andrew Tate, and Andrew, otherwise you say great things and you're an amazing, impressive guy. But on the subject of COVID, you're stupid and dangerous and ignorant, because you've repeatedly said, and the last time you said it was on your last Piers Morgan interview, which was just like a week or two ago, and you referred to COVID as no worse than the common cold. And even, thank God, Piers Morgan corrected you. And this is what I'm saying. So this woman who believes that this person who wrote that comment, Fernando, that's the problem. They think, because they believe it, or because they're just in emotional denial, one or the other reason, that it's not that bad. So let's be very clear. Right now, current COVID variants, Omicron variants, B, X, Y, Z, whatever they are, okay, B something or other, okay, still 5 to 10 times worse in severity, meaning the severity of the symptoms that they're causing. COVID causing long COVID symptoms. The common cold never caused long COVID. The annual flu doesn't cause long COVID. You've got millions of people who are getting and follow the doctors. Don't listen to Mario, Alex, and Fernando. We're not doctors. Do what I do. Go in the Twitter feed and read the Twitter feeds of the medical doctors, the daily doctors. Please, that's what I want you to do. And then you'll know, because they're saying people who are even got, I got COVID. This is what people are saying who are incorrect. They're saying, I got COVID. I got it. I had a sore throat for a few days. It wasn't bad. I had so many people say this to me. But you go to the doctor's Twitter feeds and you say, even people who reported having a mild case of COVID are ending up with long COVID. The virus is attacking other parts of their body, organs, and even their brain, and ruining their lives. Okay, so to this degree that I'm telling you this, to understand the reality, the pandemic is not over. COVID is not the common cold. It's not just the flu. It's far worse. Yes, the death rate is getting down there, almost to where the annual flu is. It's still higher. The death rate's getting down, but the severity and long COVID percentages are still a massive problem. And I believe that, well, look, we know the Chinese government knows this. And that's why they're not.
When people say something like this, is because it seems like they prefer death and misery to life and health. That's
or
the
they
only
just
understanding
believe,
I
right?
get.
Yes, or they just like this the commenter in our show. Maybe you're a very nice person, but you just believe something that's incorrect, and that's why I'm trying to clarify for you. No, COVID is very serious. So no, opening up. We already showed it earlier, Fernando, 2 hours ago at the beginning of the show. We showed it, right? If China does what Taiwan just did, 1 million people are going to die in 6 months.
Yep.
Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Can't happen.
Look, cumulative confirmed COVID-19 deaths per million in Taiwan, just going up and up and up and up. So if China were to do that, it would be catastrophic, man. It would be really, really bad for all the efforts and sacrifices that have been made in the past. Gentlemen, I wanted to invite you to give your last thoughts on this idea of zero COVID not going anywhere, and what's the future looking like for you, Alex? What information do you have?
Yeah. More testing, and more testing, which seems to work. Keeping more people alive. How is my life affected? Well, not really. It hasn't really been affected. Of course, yeah, everyone would like to go out and, be in the park or go shopping or have drinks with friends. But being in this society now for 18 months, I get it. I completely understand it. I don't want to be irresponsible. No one in my family is irresponsible. But you just have to understand that this is a country that is trying to keep people alive. It cares more about its people than a rock concert. And that's just the way that they're going to roll here. That's the way the Chinese, they care about their people. It's the government that cares about the people. People that take shots at the CPC, clearly they don't understand what academics you need to even be a party member. So that will definitely send a message there that even if you're pronouncing the name wrong of the party that is in the government here, you show a lack of experience and a lack of respect for a government that is trying to keep people alive. If there is a a dark cloud, it's that most of these nations want China to fail. And you would think that most of them would want this country to be open, to prosper, to have 1.5 billion people travel to their countries now. But I'm not so sure that when this country fully opens, if people are going to be in a rush to get on an airplane to go to 186 other countries that have been completely irresponsible during this time. So wishful thinking, if you are surviving on a tourism market and you want to welcome the Chinese, well, then you better rally behind them and trying to send a clear message that thank you, China, for keeping it together, because the last thing you want is this country to deepen this pandemic crisis that's happened over the last few years. And yeah, once again, I think there'll be a lot of people that will want to come into the country when it's open fully for tourism. But Chinese, I think they're going to think about it for a bit. They're going to go slow here. So don't think for a massive rush of people wanting to leave here. Not after what we've seen. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Sure. Mario, last thoughts. Invite people
Alex,
to your Substack.
Yeah, Alex agreed 100%. Let me invite people to two things. Very, very important. First of all, please go to my YouTube channel, Mr. Ma's China Adventures. I've decided, look, besides doing my best to sincerely and genuinely and accurately share with you what's happening in the realities of China, I feel a higher calling, and I'm going to start up my training course to teach anyone who wants to know how to identify and protect yourself from manipulation and deception. This is a advanced level communication skills course, which I've spent 20 years in communication skills, teaching the Fortune 500 company executives and coaching. I got plenty of experience at that. I know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, and it's for free. Of course, would love for you to make a donation to, through my PayPal or whatever it might be, but it's free. If you decide to watch it for free, you can watch it for free. I'm going to put that up as knowledge for the world. I'm really looking forward to sharing that with all of you in the coming days. The first one is already up, the introduction. Also, to please do subscribe to Mr. Ma's Counterpoint China for updates on what's happening in China, my newsletter. And I just want to end it on a comment from SCH in the group I really appreciate, which is that the people that died aren't around to tell you how bad COVID is. And this is exactly right. And Fernando, it's not just what you mentioned earlier. You had last mentioned it about if China opens up and this million people that are going to die. I wanted to jump in and say, and let's not forget, if there's a million that die, how many will be severe in ICU in the hospitals? Millions more. So this is real. This is serious. Fernando with all of his heart and soul, Alex with all of his heart and soul, me with all of my heart and soul, we are doing everything we can to bring you the truth about what's happening with respect to COVID, the pandemic, and the situation and the realities and truths of China. And at the same time, fighting off the evil, dark, miserable sons of bitch people who are constantly manipulating and deceiving you about China and lots of other things. So be safe, be wise, wake up, and thanks for joining us today. See ya.
My last thought is, remember that the horrible situation that took place in Urumqi could be used to bring some justice to the people of Xinjiang, to bring some justice to them for all the lies that have been told about Xinjiang. We see the protests for the people that passed away. Where are the protests for the genocide that they allege has been taking place for many, many years? And that's it. That's my final message. Use that information to throw it in the face of all those people paid to lie about the situation of Xinjiang here in China. Well, guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. And remember to
Thank you, Fernando.
like, comment,
Thank you.
share, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.